Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to part 5 of our 5-part core set 2019 pre-release prep series, where today we're going to look at the green cards in depth and figure out what are some of the better cards that if you see these in your pool this weekend, you might want to consider making green one of your colors. And we're going to focus, as we have in the other videos, on a lot of the uncommons and commons, considering those are the cards you're going to see the most of in your sealed pool. Quickly before we get started though, just a fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support what we do here. Our Patreon page is linked down below. You're also going to find links to some products on Amazon if you make any purchases there. Actually, no matter what you buy, once you go through that first link, we'll get a small percentage for the channel. Finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. Hopefully you can save some cash while you support us. Again, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all the viewers. Y'all make the channel what it is. Let's get into it. We're going to begin, as we have with the other videos, with the signpost cards that touch green. Quick reminder, these are the 2-color uncommon cards that are supposed to differentiate exactly what the 2-color combinations are trying to do. Important to know these for draft, definitely. But even for sealed, I think they're good to know so you can pick out some synergies within your pool. Satyr Enchanter is the first one in Selesnya colors green and white, and those 2 colors are all about the enchantments, especially auras, and you can see from this card that when you cast an enchantment, you're able to draw a card, so it mitigates the risk of enchantments coming in and not really doing anything, and that's pretty awesome. As a matter of fact, this feels like a fun build. Secondly is Skyrider Patrol. This is a good example of exactly what Simic is trying to do, the green giving a little bit of a buff to a creature, where the blue is providing some evasion. Poison Tip Archer, Golgari colors, black and green. Again, another card that embodies exactly what those colors are trying to do by adding reach and death touch and that ability to this creature. And finally, Draconic Discipline in Gruul colors, red and green. And red's all about dragons, green's all about ramps, so this card completely makes sense for what those 2 colors are trying to do. Alright, let's look at some of the notable commons in green that you may want to pay attention to once you open your packs. First is Centaur Courser, and typically I'm not a big fan of creatures that are vanilla and don't have abilities attached to them, but if you're ahead enough on curve, I'll pay attention to you, and this is the case here. A 3/3 for 3 a lot of times is just better and bigger than what you're getting normally on turn 3 in a sealed game, so at least for this format, I think this card could be decent. Druid of the Cowl. It's not Llanowar Elves, but you know what? It's going to be just as good in sealed. Sure, it doesn't come down on turn 1, but it comes down on turn 2, which means turn 3 you could have a 4-drop potentially come into play, so on and so forth. If you just stay ahead of that curve, that could be really good for you. So yeah, for 2 mana, I'm happy to play this all day long. It's a nice little blocker too, 1/3, more durable than say Llanowar Elf, for example. Giant Spider. I included this because I don't want people to overlook it. It's one of those cards that always shows up in core sets and you see it all the time. But it's actually a really good card, especially because green needs a way to deal with small flyers sometimes early on. And this is a 2/4 with reach for just 4 mana. It's more of a defensive card perhaps than an aggressive card. It can rumble if it needs to, sure, as a 2/4, but usually you hold it back to deal with bigger problems. But considering you can block, say, a 3/3 with this by turn 4, that's actually pretty good. Rabid Bite. Maybe one of the best quote-unquote green removal spells. Because remember, green isn't going to get the destroy target creature type spell typically. There's usually some hoops you have to jump through to destroy creatures in green. And yes, you do have to have a good enough creature on the battlefield for this to work, but for 2 mana, even at sorcery speed, this is going to be phenomenal for you within this color. Titanic Growth. Another really simple card, much like the original Giant Growth. This is 1 more mana, but they also give you 1 more power toughness. What's appealing about this card, though, just overall, is it's an instant. It's a great combat trick. You can use it defensively, you can use it offensively, throw it on a trampled creature, maybe even end a game sometimes. This is a very good, cheap instant spell. Alright, let's look at some uncommons. Declare Dominance. This card is phenomenal because this is one of those cards that could get you past a board stall, and I've been talking about that all week in this series, that one of the big things I look for in my pool are ways to get past these sealed deck board stalls. This will do it. The +3/+3 is cool, especially if you can put that on a trample creature. But what I'm really looking at on this card is simply the lure effect. All creatures able to block it this turn do so. Now that means all my other creatures I'm attacking with most likely are going to be freed up to hit the opponent. That could end a game. Dryad Green Seeker. This is maybe one of the most powerful uncommons I've seen in a while. This card is phenomenal. A 1/3 for 2, nice little blocker, so on and so forth, but look at that ability. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. So if you're doing that every turn, that means you're going to be drawing a lot of cards unless your opponent does something about this. And they need to. They need to burn a removal spell on this silly little 2-drop 1/3 creature, or they lose the game to it. Now, it's not a great draw if you're already behind late game. Sure, that's the give and take of this. But if you can get this thing out early, this alone could just win you the game through card advantage. Gasbark Twins. Now, this is a 7/7 trample creature for 7. That's the main reason I put it on here. Yeah, defensively, if you're behind, it's not bad either. It can block an additional creature. That's kind of cool. But this is one of those cards that already has trample built in. It's pretty sizable. It can push some damage across later in the game. You can maybe buff it and do more damage. Very, very good uncommon creature here. Gift of Paradise. Many of you have probably played with this recently. It's a great card in Sealed. It fixes color, which could be really important for a lot of decks. It's going to ramp you a little bit, which is always nice. But one of the things that makes this card stand out compared to other cards like it is that life gain of 3. I know that seems small and might not even matter some of the time, but I like that because sometimes when you play a card like this, you're kind of taking the turn off to do it, and you're almost expecting to take a little damage because you're going to have a bigger play on maybe turn 4 or turn 5. And in this case, being able to regain 3 of that life mitigates that a little bit, and I like that. This is a very, very good card, and it's splashable. Vine Mare. This has hexproof. Next card. That's all I have to say. Hexproof is nuts, especially with all the good enchantments running around here. You're just going to put this down, throw some enchantments on it, and that alone might even win you a game sometimes. This is a phenomenal creature. And yeah, if your opponent's playing black, well, even better. Okay, let's look at a few bomb rares and mythic rares that, if you open one of these, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to play green, but you want to definitely look at green strongly if you happen to get one. The first one, Goreclaw, Terror of Qualsisma. This card is phenomenal. There's just so much going on here. 4/3 for 4. Creature spells, you cast with power 4 or more, cost 2 less to cast once this is on the battlefield. That's great. But I really love this next ability. Whenever this attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. Now, if you don't have a lot of larger creatures in your deck, you might want to skip this one, obviously. But if you do, and you're in green, so you're in the right color for that probably, then yeah, this could help you put away a game or get past a board stall just because of that trample ability that it gives many of your creatures. That's kind of awesome. Palaka Worm. Alright, this has been moved up to rare, and if you ever played with this in the sets where it was uncommon for Sealed or Draft, you probably know why they moved this up to rare. You want to talk about some long, drawn-out, swingy games, especially if someone had 2 of these in their deck, like he beat them and beat them and beat them, and you're about to win, and then they play this, and it's like a new game. It's almost like starting over. 7/7 trample, they gain 7 life, and they replace this. It was insane. Not every deck can handle this, obviously, being 3 green, but if you get this and you can swing that casting cost, play it. Vivian Reed, Attorney at Law. Okay, when she was first previewed, I mentioned that I felt like she was a little shaky for Standard, but in Sealed, she's going to be great for you. 5 loyalty for 5, that's board presence on its own right there. The +1 is great, you're able to dig for some lands, maybe color fix, or, perhaps more importantly when it comes to Sealed, later in the game, you can dig for creatures, keep finding the heat so you can stay ahead of your opponent and hopefully not get into a board stall. And the -3, it's okay because it doesn't protect her against ground creatures, but it does protect her against flying. It lets you deal with the problematic flyer or an artifact or enchantment, which I do like that versatility. The -8, sure, you need to have creatures in play for it to matter, but in certain circumstances, especially a board stall, which will happen in Sealed, this could be game ending if you can get there. So overall, I think she's fantastic in that particular environment. Okay, let's wrap things up by looking at a few key multicolor cards and one key land card that I just wanted to point out to you. We'll begin by looking at some of the Elder Dragons. Now, we're going to talk about all of these really quick other than Arcades, and the only reason I didn't pick that one was simply because it's still a good Sealed card, don't get me wrong. If you can cast it, like, it'll still be great for you, but it felt like it was a little more tailored to constructed decks like Commander, so I didn't include it here, but it's still great. Now, Chromium's going to be awesome in Standard Esper control decks, but it's still going to be phenomenal if you have the opportunity to play with it in Sealed. It won't happen often being a mythic. All these dragons aren't going to show up that much, but when they do, you're going to be real happy as long as your deck can swing the casting cost. So don't try to force it if it's not there, but if you can do it, it'll be good. Nicol Bolas the Ravager, which transforms into Nicol Bolas the Arisen. This is maybe my favorite out of the dragons when it comes to sealed, just because the casting cost is so reasonable. Grixis colors, again, that might be an issue for some decks, so consider it. But if you can give this out for 4/4 flyer, and you make an opponent discard a card, that's kind of awesome. Now, transforming is a little more expensive, Grixis colors in 4, but if you do it, it's going to be amazing, obviously. So this is one of those cards that will be a powerhouse if you're ever lucky enough to play with it in sealed. Palladium Ores, the Runer. Again, yeah, 3 colors, that could be an issue, but if you get in play, 6/6, flying, vigilance, trample, it even has hexproof if it hasn't dealt damage yet, and that's not per turn, that's all together. So once it deals damage to something, then it loses the hexproof. But at least it creates a situation where it's probably 99% of the time going to do something before it goes away, so that's kind of nice. But if your opponent doesn't have an answer for this, they're in trouble. Vivictus Asmati the Dire. Same story here. I mean, you can stop me at 6/6 flyer for 6. Yes, 3 different colors could be an issue, but if you can play this thing, it's good. Yes, the ability is a little high variance, but at the same time, making your opponent get rid of their best thing and you getting rid of your worst thing and then seeing what comes up still can be really good, especially over the course of a couple turns. Rupture Spire. Okay, this is the one land I wanted to highlight. It's an uncommon, and this is just a great way to fix color if you're trying to go maybe 3 colors, even if it's just a splash, or if you got lucky and you happen to open one of those dragons or something like that. This set doesn't have Evolving Wilds, so this is kind of the best we got. It's a little slower than I would like, but you know what? It's going to fix a lot of issues, so if it does show up in your seal pool, pay attention to it. Now in this set, you're also going to find that comes into play tap dual lands sometimes in a land spot, and those are great, but you just can't count on getting the ones you need when you're only opening 6 packs, unfortunately. So just keep an eye out for this one. Also, we've been talking mostly about sealed, of course, in this series, but if you ever play draft with this set, this is a card you might want to take a little higher than you normally would. Alright, that concludes our pre-release prep series. Hopefully you're ready for this weekend's pre-release. When you get a chance, let me know in the comments below how you feel about this format. I did something different this time and just tried to highlight some cards and move through them quicker, and hopefully more people will have time to actually watch the entire thing. Previously, I did full set reviews where we talked about every single card in detail. Those videos were about 30 to 40 minutes. But let me know your preference. Would you prefer me to go back to the full set reviews that are longer? Or do you prefer the shorter, quicker videos and maybe you have time to watch those as opposed to the longer ones? Just let me know. I'd be curious. I'm definitely willing to change this in the future based on the feedback. Tomorrow, we're going to also do our pre-release primer for new players like we typically do prior to a pre-release. And then on Friday, special edition of the Market Watch, we're going to be talking about the cards you're going to be opening this weekend during your pre-release so you know what's worth what. And then Saturday, our regular Market Watch. But until then, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.